Next applicant, please. The receptionist's voice was crisp and polite, the kind that carried the weight of hierarchy and quiet judgment. Zara straightened her blazer, exhaled, and walked forward. Her heels clicked against the marble floor as she entered the glass conference room perched high above the Seoul skyline. Everything gleamed, the table, the windows, the man seated at the far end. Hyun-Woo Kang, CEO of Yunsong Group, a name whispered in boardrooms and business schools alike. He was known for his flawless reputation, his cold discipline, and his complete avoidance of personal scandal. And yet, here he was interviewing a nanny. Zara hesitated at the door before bowing slightly. "Good morning, Mr. Kang." He looked up from the tablet in his hand. His eyes, dark, calm, assessing, lingered on her just long enough to make her shift in her seat. "You may sit," he said evenly. "You're applying for the live-in nanny position?" "Yes, sir. I'm a licensed early childhood educator. I've worked with children from ages 3 to 8. His gaze flicked down to her resume. 4 years teaching in Atlanta, he noted. "And you've been in Korea for how long?" "Almost a year. I came on a teaching contract." He nodded once, but didn't respond right away. The silence stretched, heavy, deliberate. Zara could hear the ticking of the wall clock, the faint hum of the air conditioning. "You're American," he said finally. "Yes. Born and raised in Chicago." She smiled softly. "My mother was a nurse, my father a jazz musician. I grew up around books, music, and noise." "Noise. The good kind," she said with a small laugh. "The kind that feels like life." That made his gaze lift again. For the first time, there was a flicker of something human there. Curiosity, perhaps, or the faint memory of warmth. "My daughter doesn't speak much," he said after a pause. "Since her mother passed, she's been quiet." Zara's tone softened. "Sometimes silence isn't peace, Mr. Kang. Sometimes it's just a child trying to listen for someone who isn't there anymore." He didn't move for a long time. Then he set her resume down. "You start Monday." Zara blinked. "Wait. Just like that?" "Just like that," he said, rising smoothly from his chair. "I've interviewed 9 applicants today. You're the first one who didn't sound rehearsed." "Oh," she said, still processing. "Thank you, Mr. Kang. It's not gratitude I'm looking for," he replied, walking toward the window. "Just someone who can make my daughter smile again." 2 days later, the black car stopped before the wrought iron gates of the Kang estate. Zara stepped out, suitcase in hand, the city's noise fading behind her. The mansion loomed ahead, vast, elegant, and silent. The kind of silence that didn't just fill the space. It owned it. A butler led her inside, his movements precise, almost rehearsed. The air smelled faintly of cedar and disinfectant. Every painting, every vase, every piece of furniture looked like it had been chosen by someone who hated surprises. Her room was on the 3rd floor, large, sunlit, overlooking a private garden. She set her bag down and pressed a hand against her chest, steadying her breath. "You've done harder things," she told herself. "You've started over before." That evening, she met Mia. 5 years old, delicate and cautious. The child peeked out from behind a curtain before Zara knelt and smiled. "Hi there, sweetheart. I'm Zara. Are you my new teacher?" "Something like that. I'm here to stay with you. We're going to have lots of stories." "Okay." By bedtime, Mia was curled up in Zara's lap, laughing softly as Zara read about a clumsy rabbit who dreamed of flying. The sound was small, hesitant, but it was laughter all the same. When Zara glanced up, she saw him. Hyun-Woo stood in the doorway, his tie loosened, his hands in his pockets, watching quietly. His face gave nothing away, but his eyes told a story of a man who hadn't expected warmth to walk into his house wearing a second-hand blazer and a smile that felt like home. Neither of them spoke, but in that moment something began. Fragile, unfamiliar, and quietly inevitable. It wasn't love. Not yet. But it was the first time in years that the house didn't feel empty. The mornings in the Kang mansion began with silence. Not the kind of silence that felt peaceful, but the kind that pressed against the walls, that waited for someone to break it. Zara woke before dawn most days. The first week was a blur of adjusting. The language, the routine, the quiet staff who bowed but rarely spoke, and the way everything in the house seemed too big for its inhabitants. The marble floors reflected her steps as she moved through the hallways, checking on Mia, helping the cook prepare breakfast, tidying toys that barely got used. Mia was gentle, shy, and curious, always watching Zara, always hovering close. She'd lost her mother when she was only 3, and the loneliness in her eyes sometimes hit Zara like a physical ache. Still, she made it her mission to fill the girls' days with laughter. They read picture books, painted with watercolors, baked disastrous cupcakes that ended in giggles and flour everywhere. Mia began to smile more. Then she began to talk. "Auntie Zara," Mia whispered one afternoon as they built a pillow fort in her room. Do you think Daddy likes when I laugh?" Zara paused, a pillow in her hands. "Of course he does, sweetheart. Why would you think he doesn't?" "Because he never laughs back." The words hung in the air, heavy and small. Zara smiled gently, brushing Mia's hair aside. "Sometimes grown-ups forget how to laugh," she said softly. "But that's why we're here, to remind him." That night, she found Hyun-woo in his office, the one room in the mansion that still looked alive. Warm desk light spilling over piles of papers, the faint scent of coffee and exhaustion. He looked up briefly when she entered. "Mia's asleep?" "Yes, finally." After 3 stories, 2 glasses of milk, and a very serious conversation about the moon, he gave a quiet, almost reluctant smile. "She talks more now." "That's the point," Zara said. "She's learning to feel safe again." He leaned back in his chair, studying her. "You seem good with her." "It's not hard to be. She's a wonderful child. Most people find her distant." "Maybe they're not listening closely enough," she said, meeting his gaze. The air between them shifted. It wasn't romantic, not yet, but it carried an awareness neither could deny. He cleared his throat. "If you need anything, the staff can assist. You don't have to do everything yourself." "I'm used to doing things myself," Zara replied lightly. "Besides, helping her helps me, too." There was something about her honesty, simple, unpolished, that disarmed him. For a man who lived surrounded by people who spoke in numbers and careful words, her sincerity felt almost dangerous. "You're not what I expected," he said quietly. "And what did you expect?" "Someone less real." Zara blinked, unsure how to respond. He looked away quickly, as if the words had slipped out by mistake. She smiled faintly. "Well, real is all I've got, Mr. Kong." Later that week. By the weekend, the house was different. Mia's laughter floated through the halls. The kitchen smelled like pancakes instead of polished marble. Even the staff seemed to walk a little lighter. Hyun-woo noticed it most of all. One evening, he paused at the doorway as Zara and Mia danced barefoot in the living room, twirling to a soft tune playing from Zara's phone, an old jazz record her father used to love. Zara's curls bounced as she spun Mia around, both of them laughing until they collapsed onto the couch. He didn't join them. He just stood there, hands in his pockets, tie loosened, watching the 2 people who had somehow turned his silent house into a home. And when Zara finally noticed him, breathless and smiling, she grinned. "You're welcome to join us, you know." "I don't dance," he said almost too quickly. "Then you haven't tried with the right music." For the first time in years, he laughed. Quietly, unexpectedly, and Zara felt her heart skip a beat. That night, as she lay in bed, the sound of his laughter echoed faintly in her mind. She hadn't meant to care. He was her employer, her boss, her boundary. But something about him, the loneliness behind the composure, made her wonder if maybe both of them were learning to breathe again. It wasn't love. Not yet. But it was a beginning, slow, steady, and inevitable. "Good morning, Mr. Kong." Zara stood at the edge of the dining room, tray in hand, trying not to notice how enormous the table looked with only 2 people sitting at it. Hyun-woo at the head, and little Mia halfway down, swinging her legs. It had been 3 weeks since Zara moved into the mansion, and yet the rhythm of the house still surprised her. Everything ran like a perfectly tuned clock. Meals at 7 sharp, meetings that stretched into the night, and a father who never seemed to rest. Hyunwoo barely looked up from his tablet. Morning. We made pancakes, Zara said brightly. Mia did most of the stirring. He arched a brow. Is that why the kitchen smells like smoke? Zara grinned. A small accident. But the pancakes survived. Mia giggled, and Hyunwoo's lips curved just slightly. The faintest trace of a smile. Moments like that were rare, but Zara was learning to collect them quietly. Later that morning, Zara took Mia out to the garden for lessons. The sky was pale blue, the autumn air crisp and cool. Mia ran ahead with her sketchbook, her laughter carrying through the hedges. Miss Zara, one of the older housemaids said as she passed, voice low but pointed. You might want to be careful. The CEO staff aren't used to outsiders living here. Zara paused, brushing a curl from her face. Outsiders. You know what I mean. The woman gave a tight smile and walked away before Zara could reply. For a moment, Zara stood frozen, her hands trembling slightly. She'd heard worse before. In classrooms, in subway stairs, in the whisper of strangers who thought she didn't understand Korean well enough to notice. But somehow, hearing it here, in the house where she was finally starting to feel at home, stung more than she expected. That evening, as she tucked Mia into bed, the little girl noticed her silence. Auntie Zara? Did I do something bad? No, sweetie. You didn't do anything wrong. Then why do you look sad? Zara smiled faintly. Just tired, that's all. But Mia wasn't convinced. She wrapped her small arms around Zara's neck. Daddy says when people are mean, we don't have to believe them. Zara blinked. He said that. Yes. He said that's why he doesn't read the news anymore. Zara's chest tightened. Your daddy's right, baby. Later, as she passed Hyunwoo's office, she noticed the light still on. She hesitated, then knocked lightly. Come in. He was seated behind his desk, jacket off, sleeves rolled up, exhaustion softening the edges of his perfect composure. Zara stepped inside. You work too much. You talk too much, he replied without looking up. Occupational hazard, she said. You're not very good at resting, are you? He glanced at her then. Sharp, unreadable, but curious. Is that in your job description? Telling me what I'm bad at? No, she said softly. That's me being human. There was a pause. The air between them shifted again, heavier this time. Mia told me what happened today, he said. One of the staff made a comment. Zara froze. She told you? She hears more than people think. He stood, walking to the window. I know it isn't easy here. My world. It's not always kind to people who don't fit its image. I'm used to that, Zara said quietly. It's not the first time. It shouldn't have to be something you're used to. The words came out softer than she expected. When he turned back, there was no trace of the cold CEO. Only a man who looked like he hadn't allowed himself to feel empathy in far too long. I'll speak to them, he said firmly. You don't have to. Yes, he said. I do. For a long moment, neither of them moved. The only sound was the faint hum of the night outside, the city breathing beyond the walls. You know, Zara said finally, you surprise me sometimes. How so? You look like someone who forgot how to care, but you keep proving me wrong. A faint smile ghosted his lips. Care is dangerous, Miss Zara. So is loneliness, Mr. Kong. Something passed between them, unspoken but powerful, before she turned to leave. When the door closed behind her, Hyunwoo exhaled slowly, as if something inside him had shifted. For the first time in years, he realized the walls around him weren't built from glass and steel. They were built from fear. And Zara, somehow, had started to find the cracks. It wasn't love. Not yet. But the walls were beginning to fall. The first rumor started with a whisper. By the end of the week, it had become a quiet certainty among the mansion staff. The CEO was smiling again. Zara didn't notice it at first. She was too busy filling Mia's days with laughter and light. Morning lessons in the garden, watercolor afternoons, movie nights wrapped in blankets. but everyone else noticed. The maids who'd never seen Hyunwoo linger at breakfast now watched him stay through an entire meal, even listening to Mia's chatter about her drawings. The driver said he hummed once. The housekeeper swore he almost laughed out loud when Zara tripped over the dog. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't forbidden. But it was changing everything. One cool evening, rain swept across the city, drumming against the windows. The mansion felt smaller that night, warmer, more alive. Zara and Mia sat by the fireplace, the lights dim and the glow of the flames soft against their faces. They were reading The Velveteen Rabbit, Mia's head resting against Zara's arm. "Auntie Zara," the little girl murmured sleepily, "do you think toys can really become real? Only the ones that are loved enough?" Zara whispered, brushing a curl from her forehead. "That's what makes anything real." She didn't notice Hyunwoo at first, standing in the doorway, listening. Something in her voice, soft, patient, alive, hit him deeper than he expected. When she finally looked up, she smiled. "You're home early. It's past 10. For you, that's practically dinner time." He huffed a quiet laugh and stepped closer. "You shouldn't still be working. This isn't work." She nodded to the sleeping child. "This is peace." Her words lingered in the room like warmth. For a moment, they just stood there. The fire between them, the storm beyond the windows, and the faint scent of chamomile tea. "Do you miss her?" Zara asked softly, breaking the silence. He looked up, startled. "My wife." She nodded. "Every day," he said. "But I don't remember her laughter anymore. Just the quiet after she was gone." Zara's chest tightened. "Then maybe it's time to fill that quiet again." "With what?" "With life." It wasn't flirting. Not exactly. But it wasn't just comfort, either. It was something that vibrated softly beneath every word. Unspoken, undeniable. He looked at her then, really looked, the woman who'd walked into his structured world and somehow made it human again. Her curls glowed in the firelight, her expression tender but strong. And for the first time, he didn't want to look away. The next morning, the whispers began to sharpen. "She spends too much time in his office. He calls her by name now. Do you think she's?" Zara tried to ignore them. She focused on Mia, on her lessons, on keeping things normal. But even she felt it, the shift, the glances, the unspoken tension in the air. And Hyunwoo wasn't blind to it either. During a meeting that afternoon, his assistant cleared her throat nervously. "Sir, about Ms. Zara. Some of the household staff are starting to talk." His gaze lifted sharply. "About what?" "About you and her. They think. They can think whatever they want," he said curtly, "as long as they remember who signs their paychecks." But when the assistant left, he sat back in his chair, exhaling slowly. He wasn't a fool. He knew what people would say about class, race, propriety, image. He'd built his entire life avoiding scandal. And yet, for the first time, he didn't want to retreat from it. That evening, he found Zara in the library, tidying the shelves while humming softly. "Do you ever stop moving?" he asked from the doorway. She glanced back, startled, then smiled. "Do you ever stop working?" "Touché." He stepped closer. The firelight flickered across his face, softening the hard lines. "They're talking about us," he said finally. "I know," she replied, voice steady. "Let them." He studied her. The calm in her eyes, the quiet strength that unnerved him more than any boardroom rival ever had. "It doesn't bother you?" "It used to," she admitted. "Back home, people said worse. I learned that what others think of me says more about them than it ever will about me." He stared at her for a long moment. Then, almost without thinking, he said, "You make it sound easy." "It's not," she whispered. "But you learn to stand tall anyway." A beat of silence. Rain still fell outside, steady and rhythmic. And for just a second, too brief, too dangerous, he reached out and brushed a damp curl from her cheek. Her breath caught. Neither of them moved. "Good night, Mr. Kong," she said softly, stepping back. "Good night, Miss Zara." When she left the room, his hand still tingled where her warmth had been. It wasn't love. Not yet. But it was a storm. Quiet, beautiful, and impossible to ignore. The picture wasn't supposed to mean anything. A single moment, Zara laughing as she held Mia's hand. Hyun-woo standing beside them, holding an umbrella against the drizzle. But someone had taken a photo, and by the next morning it was everywhere. The ICE executive melts. CEO Kong spotted with his daughter's nanny. Mystery woman in CEO's life. Just a nanny, or something more? Zara woke to the sound of her phone vibrating endlessly on the nightstand. She blinked, groggy, until she saw the headlines. Her name, her face, plastered on every gossip site. Her stomach twisted. She barely had time to think before a knock sounded at her door. Zara. His voice. Low, steady, controlled, but only just. She opened the door to find him standing there, still in his pressed shirt, his jaw tight. He looked like a man holding back a storm. You saw it? He asked. Everyone's seen it, she whispered. I don't even know who took it. It doesn't matter who took it, he said. What matters is what they're saying. Zara hesitated. And what are they saying? That you're the woman I replaced my grief with, he said bitterly. That I hired you for something more than Mia. Her breath caught. Do you believe that? His eyes softened instantly. No. Then it doesn't matter what they say, she said quietly, though her voice trembled. He took a step closer. It matters to me, because this house is your home now, and I won't let them make you feel like you don't belong in it. Zara's throat tightened. I've been here before, not in this kind of house but in this kind of story, people seeing what they want to see. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The air between them hummed, soft, charged, fragile. I can handle it, she said finally. I've had to handle worse. You shouldn't have to handle it alone. And then, in the stillness, he did something he'd never done before. He reached for her hand. It wasn't grand, just a quiet, steady gesture. His fingers curling around hers like an unspoken promise. I'll call my PR team, he murmured. We'll fix this. Hyun-woo, she said softly, his name tasting unfamiliar on her tongue. You can't fix people's prejudice. You can only decide how much of yourself you'll let it break. He froze, hearing the honesty in her voice, and for the first time he realized she wasn't afraid for herself. She was afraid for him. That evening, the storm outside matched the one in their hearts. Reporters waited by the gate. Flashbulbs flickered every time a car passed. Zara stayed in the living room with Mia, reading softly as the child drifted to sleep. Her voice trembled, but she kept reading because Mia needed her calm. When Hyun-woo came in, he stood for a long while watching them. The way Zara's curls brushed Mia's forehead. The way her hand lingered protectively on the child's shoulder. When she finally looked up, their eyes met. You don't have to face the press, he said gently. I'll take care of it. But they're talking about me, she said. Shouldn't I get to defend myself? You shouldn't have to defend your heart. Something broke open in her chest then. The ache, the admiration, the feeling she'd been trying to bury for weeks. Why are you doing this? She whispered. Because, he said quietly, you walked into my house and reminded me what kindness sounds like, and I'll be damned if I let anyone
take that from you. The words hung between them, thick with meaning neither of them dared to name. He didn't reach for her again. He didn't have to. The way he looked at her said everything, and as lightning flashed beyond the window, Zara felt it, the storm breaking, not around them, but within them.
The next morning, the press conference began. Hyun-woo stood before the cameras, calm and composed, but his voice carried a warmth it had never known before. The woman you've all seen in the photographs is not a scandal, he said simply. She's my daughter's nanny, and the person who helped bring laughter back into our home. Do you have a personal relationship with her, sir? One reporter shouted. He hesitated just for a breath and then said, Yes, I respect her. I care for her. And that's all the truth you'll get from me. Zara watched from the television inside the house, her hand pressed against her chest. Tears gathered behind her eyes, not from fear this time, but from the quiet courage in his words. For the first time, she didn't feel like someone trying to belong. She did belong, right there in that messy, imperfect, beautiful truth. That night, as the rain finally stopped, Hyun-woo came home early. The air between them was soft again. Fragile, but safe. "You didn't have to say that," she murmured when she saw him. "I did," he replied. "Because for once, I wanted the world to see something real." Their eyes met, and though no one else was watching, the world between them shifted forever. It wasn't a scandal anymore. It was love. Quiet, patient, and strong enough to survive the storm. The house was a masterpiece of silence. Long marble halls, glass walls that caught the city lights below, and a garden big enough to hold its own weather. Zara couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the morning's headlines and heard the echo of Hyun-woo's voice as he told the world she mattered. She slipped on a sweater and stepped out of her room, her bare feet whispering against the heated floors. The corridor opened into the Sky Lounge, a space that looked more like a penthouse than a part of a house. A wall of glass stretched before her, revealing Seoul glittering beneath a velvet night. She pressed her palm to the cool glass. "So beautiful," she murmured. "It is," came a voice behind her. "But you get used to beautiful things when you have no one to share them with." She turned. Hyun-woo stood near the piano, a faint glow from the city painting his face in silver and shadow. He wasn't in a suit tonight, just a white shirt, sleeves rolled to his elbows, collar open. A man unguarded. "Couldn't sleep?" he asked softly. "Too many thoughts. About the press? About everything." He crossed the room, placed a cup of tea on the glass table beside her. "Chamomile. You like that one?" She blinked. "You noticed." "I notice a lot of things when you're around." For a moment, they just stood there. Her in the city's glow, him beside her, the hum of the night between them. "I'm sorry for what you're going through," he said. "People don't know how to see kindness without suspicion. They'll forget soon enough." "But I won't," he said quietly. Zara looked up at him. The reflection of the city lights danced in his eyes. "You shouldn't say things like that, Mr. Kong." "Maybe I shouldn't," he murmured. "But I can't help it." The room felt smaller, closer. The air carried the soft scent of tea and rain. He moved nearer, not quite touching, just close enough that she could feel his warmth. "You've changed this house," he said. "I used to come home and hear nothing but my own footsteps. Now I hear laughter. I hear life." "That's Mia," she whispered. "That's you," he corrected. Her breath caught. "Hyun-woo." He stepped closer, the city lights haloing them both in glass reflections. Two figures surrounded by 1,000 tiny stars. "Tell me this isn't madness," he said softly. "That I'm not imagining it." Zara's voice trembled. "You're not." And before she could think, before he could stop himself, he leaned in, just enough to catch the faintest taste of her breath, the warmth of her skin. Their lips met, soft, hesitant, the kind of kiss that asks a question instead of taking an answer. For a heartbeat, time froze. Then he pulled back, his eyes wide, his voice breaking. "I shouldn't have done that." "Maybe not," she whispered, still dazed. "But you did." He looked away, guilt shadowing his face. "You work for me. This isn't right." "Then why does it feel like it is?" Neither spoke again. The silence between them said enough, full of everything they couldn't name yet. Finally she smiled sadly. "Good night, Mr. Kong." "Good night, Zara." As she left, he stood by the glass, looking out over the sleeping city, and for the first time his reflection didn't look lonely anymore.
Thank you so much for watching. Your support really means the world to me. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you'll know as soon as episode 2 drops.